Hello, good evening, happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to this evening's recording of the On the Ball podcast. Yay! Sorry about last week. My voice wasn't very good. I couldn't really talk, which was going to make it difficult. So we didn't do it. But that's okay, because here we are now, and we're up for an absolute stellar pod. Let me show you who's on. I'll let them wave. There we go. There's Steve, Dan, and Ffion. Look at that. That is a top-class lineup, by the way. Top-class lineup. So they're all there. We probably should work it out at this point that they actually do get to speak while I embark on my 2 minutes of trying to share this podcast on things. But that's just the way we do it. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, welcome. Good evening. They are the avenues where we can read your messages. So please comment away, ask away, and answer away. Do all of those things, and we will make sure we keep an eye on those. We'll go through them and try and share as many as we can and discuss as many as we can. We've got a couple of... whoops, I've shared it to a basketball group. Don't worry about that. We will get through as many of those as possible. We've got a couple of topics for you to discuss, should you wish. So that will be fun, obviously. And we in theory, we've got 3 games to talk about, but I don't think we'll dwell too much on the specifics of what happened at Vicarage Road and Carrow Road against Luton, because I think we're probably all trying to blot it from our memories. But that's okay. That's what is it if following Norwich is not about forgetting some of what's happened and just remembering the good bits. Right, a couple more to go. There we go. How exciting. And 2, 1. Done. Right. I have completed the administration, in which case I reckon it's probably time we crack on. So without further ado, as I believe they say, let's play the intro music. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Get involved. We love hearing from you, and we'll see you on the other side. Let's crack on. Hello all, and welcome to edition 116 of On the Ball, the Norwich City podcast that has been play acting for 3 years. I'm Michael Bailey, I cover the Canaries for The Athletic, and I sincerely hope this finds you safe and well. On the way, Bramall Payne, wobbly wheels on the wagon, and Turf Moor at the second attempt. We'll work through all of that and more with our guests this fine evening. Here they come. Here they come. Norwich numberwang chief at NCFC Numbers. Ooh, that's an exciting noise. Also known as our very own Steve Sanders.
Hello, I didn't hear that noise, so I can only assume that's coming from me. Apologies.
Oh, well, it could be my phone. For a moment, I thought it was you talking like a Dalek. But that's all good. Oh, wow. Okay, we'll see how this goes. Maybe it is just my ears. Also, we have on the show former Norwich City head of content and program editor, Dan Brigham.
Hello, Michael.
And joining us this evening, this fine evening, a fine guest, Norwich fan, Capital Canaries member, advocate, hero, groundhopper, and assistant editor at Footy magazine when Saturday comes. It's the wonderful Ffion Thomas.
Hello, Michael.
Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, especially the otherworldly noises, which, although none of that's going to make any sense if I'm the only one who can hear them.
I really hope that is the case.
Maybe it's just me. Amazing. Anyway, moving on. Thank you for joining us. How are we? Steve, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you? How's your voice? You sound back. Right, it sounds like you're back on form. It was... I don't know. Maybe your voice is following the same trajectory as the club performances on the pitch, and as your voice improves, so do Norwich City. I don't know.
I love that idea.
It's a slightly half-baked theory, but there might be some correlation there.
It's it might be erratic tonight. I've got the full range of noises, so that's exciting. We should all enjoy that. Anyway, Dan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Michael. And I reiterate what Steve says. Good to hear. Your voice is better because you were starting to sound like Phil / Grant Mitchell from EastEnders last week on the hot takes. I thought,
yes, well, I'll take that. No need to be scared, everyone. I too am glad I can now talk and also feel human. That's another welcome benefit too. Ffion, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I've just got back from my 6-a-side match tonight. So that's, if I look a little red in the face, that's why.
How'd you get on?
We won 9-8. It was a 9-8 thriller. It was very, very competitive. It was good.
Was that an 8-8 job? Let's say next goal wins, or was that?
No. We play to the whistle, and the better team won, which was my team. So.
What a fantastic game that is! What is your team?
It's not really a team. It's just different people every week, but it's very fun. A good bunch.
So loads of ringers then, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Excellent. Is that a normal level of XG? Would that be sort of normal, like of 18, 17?
Yeah. I hit the bar as well. I scored one, hit the bar, so could have been more. But okay. we'll take the points and move on.
Ffion, delighted to hear. It was such a great goal as well. Can you talk us through it?
It was a ball from deep, and I picked it up, Pookie-esque, smashed it down the middle.
Fantastic. You must have known it was in as soon as it left your foot.
That's what I said in the post-match press conference. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what was all the celebration about? Can you talk us through why you did celebrate like that?
It was the equaliser for 8-8. So I did do a little fist bump because it was a crucial goal.
So understated. Amazing. Oh, thank you for humouring me, Ffion. I appreciate that. Well, I'm glad everyone's well. That's a good starting point. Hope everyone listening and watching is well too. For those watching us live on your chosen social media platform, we also want to hear from you during the course of the podcast. It can be on absolutely anything or about what we're talking or anything else. That said, if you are struggling for motivation or for a reason to get in touch, then we do like to try and supply you with a topic. We've got two suggestions this week. Make sure I read out the right one here. This is dangerous. Zoe Morgan, friend, pod superstar, obviously. She mentioned one. If you want to answer this, everyone out there, what's the worst attempt at time wasting you've ever seen? We'd like to know that. That's off the back of what happened at Bramall Lane, obviously. And also Ryan Livermore, obviously, our own quizmaster. He says, not that I'm wishing to quote him as this, but I am going to. Recent long-serving Prime Minister Liz Truss, Norwich City fan, spent nearly £2,000 in the Norwich City Club shop. When was the last time you made a stupid, massive purchase before losing your job? So if anyone wants to take it in the humour it's intended, obviously. But if anyone wants to answer that one as well, get your comments and questions in. You can do that if you're watching live on YouTube or on Facebook. And if you want to contribute to the debate in general, all those two themes, but you are not listening or watching live, that's absolutely fine too. Simply email us with your story or comment. The address is twitterkers, Twitter, KERS, @icloud.com. After all that good stuff, and we'll keep an eye on the comments, let's crack on with this week's headline act. Now, of course, Norwich did lose at Watford and lost at home to Luton while we were away. But, of course, we can come back to those maybe slightly more loosely in a bit. The headline act itself is Norwich's 2-2 draw at Sheffield United, where it was all looking so good, Steve, and then it all unravelled painfully, and then we didn't know which way it was going to go. Everyone thought Norwich might lose, and they had a penalty, and they should have won, and they didn't. So, therefore, a draw is a fair result, and everyone's a bit meh afterwards. Yes?
Do you know what? I'm not meh. I think maybe for the first time this season, I'm not meh. I actually really...
What are you, Steve? What are you?
I am were. I don't know if I can put a noise into it, not one that the listeners would want to hear anyway. I think for considering that this season has really been a bit kind of, I don't know, it's all been a bit middle of the road, a bit sort of Magic FM. You really felt like we needed something to get the blood pumping. That was Saturday really, and I think it helped that Sheffield United are quite combative, a little bit detestable, you might even say in some senses. But I thought it was a great game. And obviously the fact that we went 2-0 up and managed to throw it away and miss a penalty in the last 5 minutes was put a bit of a dampener on it. But I think considering that there's probably quite a lot to be negative about, I just thought it was nice to be able to enjoy a game of football and feel like it really mattered. And they all matter, of course they do. But I felt like I really wanted us to get to get over the line in this one. Shame that we didn't, but it could have gone the other way as well. I thought there were elements of the performance that were really promising. Clearly, throwing away a 2-goal lead is not ideal, but I thought the front three, Pukki, Sargent, Cantwell, all had good games. I'm sure Dan would like to talk about Isaac Hayden, so I won't, but having him in seemed like a positive. So I don't know whether it's going to make me confident for the 2 games we've got coming up this week, but I do certainly think after the debacle that was Tuesday night that we can definitely pull some positives from Saturday.
Yeah, yes, because there weren't any on Tuesday. I think for me, Dan, I didn't feel so despondent at it being thrown away, because I felt like they were kind of handed the advantage. Now, I know there were some elements that Norwich definitely deserve credit for, but I mean, they were 2 pretty wretched goals for Sheffield United to concede, who, by the way, were awful in the first half. So I don't know, they felt like I don't know, I kind of wish Norwich had have managed to have held on to it, but I also wasn't surprised that they didn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't say. I mean, Sheffield United obviously had those 2 horrendous mistakes, but I don't think they were that bad in the first half. I think you saw elements of why they've done pretty well up until the international break this season. They're a really good squad. Ollie Norwood is the best player on the pitch, as he often is in the Championship. And I echo Steve's sentiments that I think the bar is quite low this season, but it's just nice to feel something again. And it often takes Sheffield United to feel something in the Championship. You had missed penalties, you had fights, you had people missing sitters, you had good saves, more fights, people diving quite a lot, really angry Yorkshiremen in the crowds. It was a properly classic swashbuckling Championship game that wasn't massively dissimilar to the 2-2 in 18-19 at Carrow Road between Norwich and Sheffield United, which was just full throttle. In the last 15 minutes, was neither of those teams were settling for a point. They were both absolutely determined to either throw away the 3 points or take the 3 points. And I think that just made for a really fun Championship match. And in a season where we've not had a lot of fun, despite, starting off well, I very much took that after 90 minutes, despite blowing a 2-goal lead.
I thought the quality in that game a few years ago was much higher than the one on Saturday, I thought, of the play and the goals.
Well, maybe in attack possibly, but the defending and the lack of sort of midfield in that Carrow Road game was pretty similar as well. But yeah, I would say overall, slight lack of quality, but as fun though.
Lots of fun. Everyone really enjoyed themselves, especially at Bramall Lane, Ffion, and especially the people who had their faces really riled up in rage. They were really enjoying themselves as they stood up and spat of feathers, not literally, that I saw. Although I think there was the odd bottle that ended up on the pitch. Hey, it happens. It is one hell of a place to go and watch your team play at, I think, Bramall Lane. But also, I've got this niggle in the back of my mind now, Ffion, that, 2 years ago, that stadium would have been empty. And had Norwich gone 2-0 up, they would have won 2-0 because the whole dynamic would have been so different. And maybe, I don't want to rewrite history, obviously, but it does feel like the fact that Norwich had their best ever away record in a season where there was no one in any stadium, apart from at Kenilworth Road in that little window in December, where, by the way, they lost. Yeah, as I said, I don't want to rewrite history. So maybe I should stop asking you questions. And Ffion, you talk.
Yeah, I did have the same thought about the way we responded to the crowd. I wasn't at the game on Saturday, but from what I've heard, it seems like Sheffield United fans were quite down on their team in the first half, understandably, and then we sort of gave them something to kick off about in the second half. And Bramall Lane is the grounds that will react to that. And they had over 30k in there or whatever it was. And it sounds like maybe when we should have been sort of damping down the game, obviously getting a third goal would have helped with that. But even if we couldn't get the third goal, sort of playing it cool a bit more, and instead you had sort of Hanley kicking stuff off, Nulis getting involved in stuff like that, and when you've got like Billy Sharp and McBurney on the pitch, it's not going to go our way, and it's frustrating. Like you say, I think 2 seasons ago we would have comfortably seen that game out. So yeah, frustrating, really. Maybe, you know, when you look at, again, we don't really want to talk about the Luton game, but what happened with Kenny there again, maybe a sort of bit of loss of discipline, maybe might be something we need to work on, because you know, now he's out for 3 games. If we're getting sort of riled up by things, it's going to cost us.
This is true. In terms of the 2 goals Norwich, we'll come on to Luton definitely. In terms of the 2 goals Norwich conceded at Bramall Lane, do we want to dish out any blame on any of them? Because I mean, I should probably say here, for the first one, I was like, where was Max Aarons? He's got completely drawn out. But it is such a chain reaction to the fact that he is following Billy Sharp. And I suppose I was probably still scarred by the sight of no left back at Vicarage Road in transition. Which is, there's a piece on The Athletic that explains what happens there. And I think actually it's not really Max's fault. It was a chain reaction from 2 people not doing anything at a throw-in, because that was what Dean Smith told me at Colney this morning, which was a fair point. So, and the problem is, once they make that first mistake, Steve, you kind of know where it's heading once they've conceded 1 goal.
Yeah, I watched them back actually, because I saw your post-match reaction and thought, maybe I missed something, because I didn't think we were too bad. I mean, I think Max had trouble with Ben Osborne all afternoon. Not so much in the way he played, but just the formation. You know, Sheffield United play with wing backs, and I think Max didn't quite know whether to stick or twist, and Osborne was playing very wide. So I think he was coming in. I think he kind of was dealing with the strike with the attacking player a little bit, and with Osborne a little bit. So I think that was partly down to the formation that Osborne found himself so free for the first one. The second one, I don't really know what, you know. Norwood plays a pinpoint pass, and John Egan, the centre-back, I think it was still up from the back and up against Max, who's like 5'2" or something. And then he heads it across and McBurney's at the back stick. I mean, maybe Aaron Ramsey, again, I was trying to watch it back and find fault, kind of made a bit of a half-hearted effort to win the ball on the touchline, which allowed Norwood the space to play the pass. But I kind of feel like that's sort of splitting hairs. We have conceded some bad goals recently, but I'm not sure they were 2 of the worst. The other thing I was going to say actually is I think I agree that Sheffield United kind of handed it to us, but the 2 goals actually are, Pukki. You know, Pukki makes those goals, and for all the times that he closes the goalkeeper down and never gets anything from it, that's for all those attempts. And I think firstly that, and then the quality to kind of bring that ball down, hustle the centre back and stick it in the bottom corner. I definitely think there's an argument. You know, we know we're not playing particularly well or fluidly, but sometimes you just pick up points from having good players on the pitch who can make things like that happen. I don't think there's that many centre forwards that would have scored in those 2 situations, purely from the press that Pukki does, that I don't think a lot of centre forwards would have got in that position in the first place, and then just to have the quality to get that ball under control and finish it. So, they weren't great in that first half, Sheffield United, but credit where it's due to Teemu for those.
We love Teemu Pukki here. The journalist next to me in the press box at Bramall Lane on Saturday, I don't know her name, but she was debating whether she could give man of the match to a player who had missed a penalty to win the game at the end, which is it's a debating point. She did in the end, I guess, with just a caveat. But, it's a fair point. I mean, it wasn't a very good penalty, was it?
No, it was your classic England World Cup penalty, wasn't it? Where they tried to side foot it into a corner, hoping the goalkeeper dives the wrong way with that kind of side foot. The Frank Lampard, the Gareth Southgate kind of penalties we've come used to. But I suppose we probably should have had a hat-trick of penalties in that game. And I'm sure Dean Smith will be writing to the EFL or the referee board, as he said he did before the game.
Updated list.
Updated list, yeah. You asked about the individual mistakes. I think it was just a lack of control, wasn't it? That led to more chances being created by Sheffield United, and they're a good side, and put 2 of them away. And that sort of lack of control has been in midfield, has been there for the entirety of the season. But also the lack of control in this game kind of coincided with Hayden first tiring and then going off. And for the first time in that first half, we looked like a team who had control in midfield. Sheffield United were a good side, but we were matching them in there. Ollie Norwood was definitely quieter in the first half than he was in the second half. And that's got to come with Hayden being experienced in that position, winning headers, getting the ball, kicking a few people, getting the ball easily and moving it on easily. And also having a left back in there as well, and playing that sort of 4-2-3-1, which seems to add greater protection than that 4-3-3-3. So it's interesting if hopefully Hayden isn't crocked for ages now, because Dean Smith did sort of allude to him being a slight issue maybe. But with Hayden in and a left back, it does suggest maybe we can garner a bit more control in midfield. And my goodness, that alongside our being able to sort of our build-up play in the final third being poor has been a real issue this season. And on that, when you mentioned that, we probably wouldn't have thrown that away behind closed doors, which you're right, but I also think that comes down to the fact we had Ollie Skip and we had an experienced Mario Vrancic, a younger Kenny McLean in midfield. We had a good midfield that season, and at this stage we've had Hayden playing 60 minutes so far. For us, we've got Liam Gibbs who's a teenager, Nunez who's very young, playing in his first season in Championship football, and let's not forget it took Tribal and Mario a season to get used to playing in this league as well. So that midfield has been an area of concern this season compared to the last two sort of promotion seasons. But hopefully, if Hayden is hopefully on his way back, then that might be fixing that area of concern.
Dean Smith said today he probably should have taken Isaac off sooner, but he kept asking how he was and he kept giving him a thumbs up, which is what probably most players would do. And I completely agree with you there, Dan, on Isaac too. And also with Dimitri Giannoulis, who came back probably a little bit sooner than we were expecting, Ffion. But I mean, it was quite fun watching him getting involved, although he shouldn't have done, obviously, didn't help, but still. And also that he's such a clear, better balance along the back line with Dimi playing.
Yeah, definitely. It's just slight concern if we're bringing people back too quickly, that we might regret that. But yeah, it is much better like that. Yeah, I mean, going back to the Sheffield United goals, I think Dean Smith mentioned they were both from throw-ins as well, which is a bit of a concern when we have a set-piece coach. But yeah, I see Dan's point about the control in the midfield. I've having seen Hayden when he came on at Watford. Definitely the sort of within the first 5 minutes he did a sort of sprint and won a tackle cleanly. I think that was the one he then got injured from, so we then had the sort of panicked 5 minutes of him on the floor having just come on. But yeah, I think if we can get them not any more injuries, then we will be in a much better position to sort of control games when we're in that kind of position.
Is there anything anyone wants to particularly say about Watford or Luton? Anything that they sort of had simmering away in the background? The one thing I will say, I mean, I write this script. You wouldn't believe it, but I do try and write a script for these podcasts, and I just sort of copy the last one. Again, you wouldn't believe it. And it had written there, is there really a debate to be had over goalkeeper? That was literally the question I asked 2 weeks ago. After that, Angus Gunn. I mean, I wrote a piece on Tim Krul sort of going, not really debate yet. And then bam, the head coach, Dean Smith, why I've introduced him as the head coach there, as if none of us know who he is. He made that change, and we've had Angus in goal now for 3 games. And also, and I've asked him, Dean, this is his position now. So I don't know when this changes again. Really, probably not before the World Cup. So that's quite interesting. So yeah, good on Angus. If anyone wants to talk about that or anything else, or if you've just blocked the 2 games from your mind, that's also
yeah. It already feels like Gunn's been in for ages to me, which maybe shows how long since we last did a podcast. I think it's fair enough. You buy a goalkeeper for £5 million. You know, I know it was a year ago. Then I think if your number one's not playing well, you've got to use him. And I think Tim's involvement in the goals at Preston was maybe slightly overplayed. I think he was unlucky for the 3rd one. 2nd one obviously was a bad pass, but his shot save to goals ratio, don't have it in front of me, is not good this season. Like he hasn't kept a lot out, and obviously some of that comes down to luck or how well people are finishing. It's a small sample size, but ultimately I don't think he's had a great start to the season, and I think his play should be up for debate as much as anyone's. Angus comes in and saves, albeit quite a poor penalty in the first sort of 15 minutes. So I think he probably, I don't know what the others think, but I think he's probably there until he drops one.
Yeah, and his kicking's been good, right? I mean, it's been better than, it's less, it leaves me less nervous than when Krul's got the ball with acres of space in front of him. And he's got that, that season he was with us in Farke's first season, he had that knack of being, it's not a knack, it's probably just being a good goalkeeper, of not making spectacular saves, but being in the right place at the right time, which he was for the McBurney header in the last minute. It's not a spectacular save, but he's absolutely in the right place at the right time to make that save. And I think, until we don't want Tim Krul back this season, because that would mean Gunn's got injured or he's run out of form, or his lack of form. So assuming he keeps playing well, then it's his place. By the way, I enjoyed after this chat last time on the podcast that Brian Gunn quote tweeted it saying it would have been a really great chat from everyone.
In that case, should we just
big enough at Angus?
In that case, Angus is unquestionably Norwich City's number one, maybe the best goalkeeper we've had for years and years and years.
If not just since Brian. Yeah, clearly. Since Brian. That's all grand. Anything sticking? Anything you want to get off your chest about these other two games, Ffion? Or
just how bad the Luton game was and how dreadful the atmosphere was. But I imagine we may get onto that later. But yeah, that was just awful.
It was a rank night, wasn't
it? Can anyone remember a championship? We've had some bad ones in the Premier League, right? But can anyone remember a championship game at Carrow Road quite as bad as that one? It hasn't been one for years, obviously, because we've had it so good. But I cannot.
Nearly every home game in Farke's first season was absolutely.
Was it really worse? Was it really worse than that?
That was quite bad.
Away games were quite fun that season, but home games were tough. Barely scored a goal. Barely created much at home.
We had 2 0-0s in a row in the space of about 3 days, I think, against Nottingham Forest and Bolton. That, for me, feels like how you can kind of sum up that season in just a couple of matches.
I don't think this app is going to go back far enough. I was going to see if we could rattle off some of those wonderful games, maybe from.
I've got them here if you want them. Norwich 0, Burton 0.
Burton was a low point.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
But then we did have Madders that season.
Yeah. Well, if he wasn't scoring a worldie, then that really nothing to remember from most games.
Yeah, Norwich 1, Barnsley 1. I don't know if anyone.
Oh yeah, wasn't that when Josh Murphy cupped his ear to the crowd? Maybe.
Yes.
That's Cardiff, wasn't it? I think that one when he banged one in from 30 yards.
I don't know, because Josh scored a goal, didn't he? And then there was sort of ironic cheers that he'd scored. And I remember Stuart Webber saying, "Oh, we've got our own fans, ironic cheering our own players scoring because they never do." So it's always worth remembering that it's always been a bit.
He scored at Barnsley that season, didn't he, Josh?
Yes, yeah, he did at Barnsley as well.
Scourge of Barnsley.
Yes, maybe I'm getting confused. Well, that's all good. I think we covered off most of those things. Let's see what you guys have come up with. Steve, you can shout us as well if you want. What we got? Andy White. I actually thought we didn't play too badly on Saturday, but we're lousy. Well, we were lousy against Watford and Luton. Top 6 at best finish, as far as I can see. Midfield is the issue. So he agrees with you then, Dan, I would say. Simon. Oh, sorry, I should be putting these up. There you go, just to prove it existed. That is Andy's actual words, you see, typed and everything. Doesn't mean anything if you're listening to this audially, but you can enjoy that next time you watch us. Simon Copperwheat, welcome back, numberwang. I think that's for you there.
Is that for my benefit? Thank you, Simon.
I think that is, yeah.
Wang with a capital W as well.
Yes, indeed. And what other ones? Oh, right. Yes, obviously on our subjects. Chris Dell, you can just about buy a full kit for £2,000 now, right? I think that's hopefully that's a joke. And Colin Anderson, would Alec Neil suggest Yannick Vilchert for the big spending then sacked one, which is very, very good work, Colin. That's made us all laugh. So well done there.
He did score our last winner at Bramall Lane, though, Yannick, didn't he?
Yeah, that's
a long
true.
time ago, last time we won that.
Yeah. Put some respect on the name, Colin. Come on.
You said it. Right, I tell you what, let's skip on to the things we are not going to talk about. So let's just rattle through some of the things we're not going to talk about. I've written here, Todd Cantwell's doing well back in the team. I thought he played quite well. I mean, it's not. I don't want to not talk about it because I don't want to not talk about it, but we're just not going to. But yeah. Does that make sense? I don't think so.
That was it was only the 6th time since the beginning of last year, beginning of 2021, that Todd's played 90 minutes for us. It is quite a rarity.
Wow.
Whether that's because he's not got the energy or just not been playing well, it doesn't happen very often. But I did think it was his best game of the season so far, which just as well because I predict him in our preseason predictions to be player of the season, and that is not looking good at this moment. No goals or assists. So come on, Todd.
Well, there we go. There we go. That's grand. Sam McCallum's back in training and may even be in the squad at Burnley. So that came out of the blue, but we're not going to talk about that. Anything you don't want to talk about, Dan?
Yeah, a couple of things. Well, I do want to talk about Pookie's 100th championship game tomorrow, apparently.
Is it?
According to the Pinkin, anyway, and which is incredible. 61 goals and 16 assists. Is that right, Steve? You'll probably be across that.
Didn't even know it was his 100th game on Tuesday, so
well,
I'm not across anything.
If it's incorrect, then I'm just passing the buck from the Pinkin. So, but I'm sure it's correct. And also, we talked about, mentioned it earlier that at Sheffield United, getting into a scrap and losing control. Nulis and a couple of others were quite embarrassing. I don't mind the occasional little dive, fine, do what you do to win matches, but it played into Sheffield United's hands entirely. Got the crowd going. If it had been at home, fine. If it had been at Carrow Road, fine. But at Bramall Lane, why are you doing anything that's going to incite that Bramall Lane crowd? That had been really quiet until we decided to start acting as if Sheffield United were doing GBH on us. Just, Sheffield United did come out and leave a few kicks on us and stuff, but just give that back. That's fine. You don't need to go down in those situations.
I mean, in fairness, Billy Sharp went down, didn't he? Sort of looking for a penalty by just sort of falling over and then.
Oh, we do it in the penalty area, fine, yeah. But in the middle of the park, and pretending you've been headbutted and that kind of stuff. Do it at home where the away crowd isn't going to make a difference, but don't do it at a large, vociferous away ground, because it's just when you're trying to protect a lead, it's just going to get the team going.
Maybe just wanted to come off. Do you think he was just feigning injury that much because he was like?
Well, he did get hooked pretty quickly.
I played for 65 minutes here. What am I still doing on?
Or he just couldn't. He just couldn't get back up because he was so tired.
He got taken off quite soon after his yellow card, was what I noticed. So it was like, we're not risking that. But also, as I was saying, Billy Sharp sat on the ball, so Grant Hanley just kicked him. I mean, that was
quite funny.
That was a tremendous. That was one of the best moments of the game. Billy Sharp squaring up to Grant Hanley. Absolutely tremendous.
Congratulations, Alex Roberts, Norwich City Academy player. I think he's been brought in from Peterborough. He's signed his first pro deal. He's an attacker, in his words, with an eye for goal, which I always think if you put those two things together, you've got a chance.
Do you think there's ever a youth player that's an attacker that doesn't have an eye for goal?
I've seen a few, yes.
But like surely that is the one thing. If you're an attacker, you have to have some sort of eye for goal, right? It's like a defender that doesn't like making blocks or challenges, He
is, but he's 17, so
sorry, I'm not having a go at the kid. I'm sure he's great.
We're all old enough to be his parents, probably. Well, certainly I am, anyway. So anything else? Anything anyone doesn't want to? Ffion?
I don't want to talk about Fulham because it looks like they're going to stay up, which means that we won't be able to go up because we're sort of magnetically opposed and we can't be in the same division. So yeah, we might. There's just no point now because they're going to stay up.
They do look like they're going to stay up. Bournemouth are losing at West Ham, so don't count any chickens on them staying up just yet.
Oh no!
But
Again,
there we go.
Another great prediction. I think I wrote them off weeks ago, and they're bottom, and they've been unbeaten since then. I'd like to not talk about our I don't know if he's a friend of the pod if he's never been on, but Tony Gary Springett returning. I say not an ideal situation when you're bringing on a 20-year-old winger to make his first appearance of the season at left back. But I thought he acquitted himself quite well. Sorry, it wasn't quite his first appearance, was it? He played in the Cup in the same position.
Oh, he did? Yeah, at Bournemouth, that's right.
But yeah, it was nice to see him back. A little throwback to the back end of last season.
And with a new contract as well.
Yes.
So, and him and Jonathan Tomkinson. So that's good. Just the 9 senior pros who are out of contract in the summer to go. Crack on, Norwich. Right. Well, I think if that's all the things we don't want to talk about, we can probably move on to some of the things we do want to talk about, which means I need a sting. How about this one from good old John?
This is almost fantasy football.
Yes, indeed. I've still got my list of October fixtures. I think these are the last 2, aren't they? Finally, on the month that never ends. you know, I wrote them all down with such high hopes, and Norwich did win at Blackpool. That's been pretty bad since then, but that's okay. That's absolutely fine. This is, of course, the rearranged game following the death of the Queen. So now we're going to go to Turf Moor on a Tuesday when it will be slightly worse in terms of weather, probably. So that's exciting. And what's more, how many points can Burnley be ahead of us if they win? And is that alarming? Would probably be the question.
7 ahead. They'd be.
Oofed. No way.
Yes,
yeah, that's quite alarming, I would say.
7 ahead. It's worth pointing out Norwich are 7th at the moment and Burnley are 3rd. So yeah. How big a game is it, Steve?
Well, I wasn't sure how big it was until you just said that they could go 7 ahead of us. I mean, as with any of these games at the moment, they sort of feel bigger for Dean Smith than they do for Norwich City because with every game that goes by without a win, there is going to be more and more unrest. As I say, I think it feels like we're trending in the right direction. It's an awful phrase, don't know why I used it. But obviously that can all go to pot with a bad performance on Tuesday. And I would say of all the teams up there, you know, no one's really kind of taken the ball by the horns, as it were, and really put their stamp on the Championship so far in the way that obviously we have done a couple of years previously. I think of all the teams that could, Burnley seem to be the one. They seem to be capable of really turning it on when they have to, e.g. the 4-0 win over Swansea, who otherwise have been in great form lately. And I guess Kompany's kind of had his bedding in period, and you sort of would expect them to kick on a little bit now. So I don't know. I mean, I suppose in some senses they're kind of what a lot of Norwich City fans probably wish had happened with us, in that new manager comes in the summer, massive shake-up, completely different style of play, and suddenly they look they look good on the pitch, even if they're not getting exactly the results that they need. I think it is worth remembering that Burnley did finish a long way ahead of us last season as well. So they did already have a core of good Championship, good Premier League players, and they still have that with some added flair and excitement thrown in.
We didn't lose to them, Steve.
No, how did that?
We beat them and drew.
I don't think we conceded.
We didn't concede a goal against them. Oh my goodness!
Although Maxwell Cornet miss an open goal from about 3 yards?
Doesn't matter.
And
I think there's a chance for that, isn't there? There's a chance for not being that good. Can't remember what that is. At their home record, they've only played 7 times at home, and they've only won 3 and drawn 4. So they are unbeaten. But Norwich have got a better home record than Burnley have, actually. So there's some statage for you, but they are absolutely awesome away from home, as they were at Sunderland, where they were 2-0 down and won 4-2. So at least Norwich weren't the absolute reversal of that, which is good. Is it going to be a bit wistful if A, Ffion, what do we want to see from Norwich? And B, is it going to be a bit wistful if we see Burnley, playing beautiful football and, under a dynamic young team and having their lovely energetic reinvention?
I don't feel like we're jealous of Burnley, although we might be if they hammer us tomorrow. But I'm really not sure what to expect from this. I'm trying to think what games would it have been between if it had been when it had meant to be, and it was sort of September the 9th, wasn't it? So would we have been better off?
Good
question.
Let me. I can tell you, it was after Norwich's 3-0 victory at home to Coventry, and before their 3-2 win at home to Bristol City.
Oh yeah, we were good then, weren't we?
We were second. We were second at that point.
Yeah, I think I would have preferred to play this game then. The idea of going to Burnley in their that comeback against Sunderland was pretty scary. I'm not confident about tomorrow.
Yes, I could sense that. You will be following the game though, won't you, Ffion?
Yes. Anyone in London, come to the Old Red Lion in Angel Islington. It will be on the big screens, and we will be watching.
What a place to go!
We can all be miserable together, or happy if we win.
I was going to say, what's Norwich's record like at the Old Red Lion, having never physically played there?
Pretty good, I think. Well, because when we get promoted, they put all the games on telly. So we've certainly the promotion seasons. We've had some good runs of celebrating promotions in there. But I remember watching the Newcastle game last season in there, the one that we should have won and didn't. So yeah, mixed.
Where it all unravelled, shall we say? I mean, at least Newcastle haven't, kicked on. Dan, I mean, Vincent Kompany seems to be doing quite well.
Yeah, I mean, they're unbeaten in 13, aren't they? And as has already been in the last 3 games, they've put 4 past Swansea and Sunderland.
Due a defeat then.
Due a defeat, yeah. Along come Norwich. But what it seems to be happening there is that they drew a lot of games, and they're turning those draws now into wins, which is relatively ominous for us. I mean, they're obviously doing something right because Vincent Kompany seems to have turned Josh Brownhill into Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard. He is banging the goals in this season and seems to be their sort of guys dictating play from deep. So, yeah, I mean, I've not seen a huge amount of them. They've still got Ashley Barnes up top. So as well as their silky skills that Kompany seems to have added to their mix, they've still got a niggly, gnarly, grungy striker up top, which always seems to cause us problems as well. So they seem pretty well balanced, although a cursory look earlier suggested that Scott Twine and Ashley Westwood are injured for tomorrow night's game, which maybe gives us a tiny bit of hope. I do think maybe if we were playing them with Hayden fully fit and hopefully Yanul is fully fit at left back as well, then maybe we'd be looking there going to get a really good result. But at this stage, I'd very, very happily just avoid the kind of results we got at the Amex against Brighton, Alex Neil, and happily take either an arrow defeat or a draw.
That's the spirit. Yeah, it's a shame. I was hoping to see Scott Twine play, but there we go. I mean, Ashley Barnes did start the game at Sunderland, but also got withdrawn at half-time. So
did he? Right.
He's directly responsible, really. For
maybe too niggly and gnarly then.
2-0 down, and then the 4-0 second half victory.
Got that kid from Southampton on loan, haven't they? Nathan Teller, who the Burnley fans seems to love as well.
Probably.
They also have. They also have in their dugout Craig Bellamy, which if we're talking about people getting wound up, he might be racing out of his dugout if decisions go against them. But yeah, nice to see Bellas again.
He is one of my heroes. It's someone I've always wanted to interview, but have yet to ever speak to him. And I can't remember which podcast he did recently. It was a Welsh podcast, but it was in English, but it was with a Welsh host, and he spoke very highly of Norwich in it. So as he should. Because
has he been linked as a number 1 position at one of his old clubs yet? I.e. us. That doesn't seem to be a link ever, does it?
No.
I wonder if he fancies a number 1 position.
Oh, that would be great, wouldn't it? I feel like then we'd have that kind of like the nasty streak that some of our fans desperately want. He's not really a Norwich kind of appointment though, is he? We're much more of a Russell Martin, I think.
Our last Welsh manager was Mike Walker, probably. I don't think we've had one since, and that turned out pretty well the first time anyway. Yeah.
Well, there we go. I mean, it's got to work. I was just going to say Nathan is Nathan Teller, isn't it?
Yeah.
He probably the subject of one of the best signing unveiling videos on social media that Burnley did, involving the generation game. So it's very funny. You can probably dig it out on Twitter, as it's probably still there. After Burnley, Norwich host Stoke on Saturday, which is, of course, probably, I was thinking this, you could probably just go back and watch our preview to the Sunderland game, and then each time you hear the word Sunderland, just replace that for Stoke, and then all of the Alec Neil stuff still works. I think that's pretty much.
They both play in red and white stripes. Did we talk about them?
They begin with us. Sorry, begin with an S.
Supportive places with delusions of grandeur, but we might have mentioned that. So
okay, yeah. Reply to Steve about that one.
And I've called Sheffield United detestable. I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, I know.
They play in red and white as well, and begin with.
Literally inviting it on, Steve. Stoke have picked up. Have they picked up? Oh no, they're still 17th. No, not really.
That's a well-researched athletic journalist.
All right. Stoke they've got the 7th best away record. So they're quite good away from home, you see. So it's just at home that they're struggling. So that'll be beneficial for when they rock up at Carrow Road.
If being 7th best away from home is your greatest stat, it suggests you're not doing very well.
Well, in fairness, I haven't gone through all the stats and then ranked to produce the best one. If Norwich lose at Burnley, what's it going to be like at Carrow Road playing Stoke? They didn't lose to Sheffield United, so maybe that's a twinge of something positive.
I feel like we're in one of those runs though where you're really only as good as your last game in the fans' eyes. You know, like if we play badly on Tuesday, they're not going to remember that we put in a decent performance against Sheffield United. I don't know really. I really think the atmosphere. I think Fion's already mentioned it, but the atmosphere was bad against Luton.
Toxic? Do you think we were quite close to toxic, weren't we? We had Dean Smith sort it out chance. You know, Dino sort it out. I mean, it's nice they used a friendly term to describe him, but still,
I thought that was quite polite. Really, there could have been a lot. You know, you hear a lot more abusive stuff than sort it out from the stands, don't you? So, I don't think we were that close to toxic. I think we were closer to apathetic. But
I think some of it was targeted at the players as well, wasn't it? There was some fit to wear the shirt stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's not quite tipped over, but the writing is on the wall, I think, a little bit.
Well, I mean, Stephen H asks, do you think Dean Smith will still be in charge by Stoke? I think he'll still be in charge by the end of the season. So,
do you?
In a good way or a bad way?
I just think, unless there's a really horrific run, which the team shouldn't really be capable of, there shouldn't be a complete falling off the wheels, because I think this probably the squad has got.
Are we not in the middle of one of those right now, though? It just sort of feels like we have
not one for 7 games. Or is it 8?
Well,
is it 7 or 8?
One win in 7, I think, is to quote Grant Hanlon.
Wow, one win in 7, but then you could say it's 4-5 in whatever 7 plus whatever is. You can read it how you want. I just think I don't know. I think it's going to take a lot for the supporters to do something that registers with the people running the club that they need to change the manager, because I think they're in a mood at the moment where they'll just ignore the fans, if I'm brutally honest, because they'll feel like Dean Smith, if the group are with him, that will be enough. And also they may view the fact that if it's not going to happen this year, they're going to have to, take a hit of losing some senior pros, and they're going to need a younger team to rework. Actually, Dean Smith's probably a good head coach to take that forward. I don't know. I'm not. This is completely me, guessing, and maybe I'm living in La La Land.
Can the club afford another payoff as well?
Well, no is the answer. Possibly,
but also they can't really afford to not be promoted as well. So
this is true. But I mean, it is.
What would the fans need to do to get the board's attention? Do you think, like a fireworks display, or some sort of like massive cabaret act, or just a protest outside the ground? I don't know.
I would hate to suggest ideas and be accused of that. It reminds me of an anecdote. They were talking about Nottingham Forest Liverpool, because this is obviously there's a big nostalgic rivalry between the two clubs that hasn't existed for years. Really, it's not even relevant now. But it's obviously they wanted to talk about it.
Like Norwich,
one of the,
like Norwich versus Ipswich. Yeah.
Yes, let's hope that never rekindles. Don't want to do it. I did watch Ipswich against Derby the other night. I don't want to talk about it. But yeah, on TalkSport, Stuart Pearce retold a story from playing Liverpool in the 80s or whatever, where a player threw a dart at Pat Clements, I think, and it was sort of stuck in his arm, and he didn't make a fuss. And they were all sort of quite jokingly laughing about this fact that this dart had been thrown from there, and that Pat had got in the way of it. And I'm just thinking, don't give anyone any ideas. We don't need to talk about darts being thrown on the pitch. I mean, now I'm retelling this bloody anecdote, and now I'm doing the same. But I can't even remember why I started talking about this. Oh yeah, so I'm not going to suggest any ideas. I mean, we know bed sheets don't work, because bed sheets just rile people, so we know that. So we don't need any more of that. But it's clearly a subject amongst people. Look, Stephen H., if we lose at Burnley, then is Dean Smith out? That's not the same question as the as the actually no, it is because they're both from Steve. Oh, there it is. No, if we lose at Stoke, then DS out. And Stephen earlier said, do you think he'll be still in charge by Stoke? So that's fair play, Stephen. You've asked the same question twice in different ways, and there's me thinking there are lots of people saying the same things. But honestly, Daniel Rivet, I cannot understand why Dean Smith is refusing to try and create a bond with the fans. I think there was a second point he made, or I haven't got it here, which is obviously something that's come up as well.
I don't really get that, because what did Alex Neil do? What did Paul Lambert do? They won games? That's how they created a bond with the fans. Daniel Farke obviously went over to the crowd and did his waves and stuff, but usually the way to create a bond with fans is just winning games. What else do they want him to do?
But has Daniel Farke changed that landscape? Has he changed that expectation?
It's a bit showy, if anything, isn't it?
That is what Dean Smith would say.
Just let the players take the plaudits.
And also, is he refusing to create a bond? Are people going up to him and going, Dean, you really need to make more of an effort with the fans? He's just going, no, I don't want to. I'm not going to do that. I think it's more just that he's not that charismatic in that way. And that's okay, right? It doesn't make a difference to the results. So I don't know.
He always claps them. What I did notice is that it's just from the dugout. And at the end, he obviously wants everyone to leave the pitch before he does it, pretty much. But I did notice in the highlights, the extended highlights of the Sheffield United Norwich game that Norwich put out on their YouTube feed, they showed footage of him clapping the away fans before kickoff, and then they showed footage again of him clapping the fans after the game, and they were both in the highlights. And knowing how the club works, that won't be an accident. They will definitely.
Are we sure it was from that game? They hadn't cut it.
Deep fake.
Or the same footage that they just replayed twice.
It was funny because I was looking at the front image of the strategic report, which Norwich released. Actually, we haven't even spoken about that, but Norwich released their annual accounts. They owe 65 million quid in the next 2 years. So basically they've spent all their parachute payments already in advance, from what I can tell. If they don't go up, they're going to need to cut the wage bill and sell some players and make some money. That's the long story of it. But on the strategic report, there was a picture of the players walking out and applauding the Barclay with flags. And I was trying to work out because the only players in this lineup were Tim Krul, Andrew Omobamidele, and Kenny McLean, and they were sort of quite spaced out. And I was just looking at it going, is this an actual photo, or have they managed to have this photo where only players that are relevant and you'd want in it are in it? And you could maybe put. I mean, I'm not that I want to accuse them of photoshopping the image, but I might even have it here. But it just made me think that they. I can't be asked to get it out. But it made me think, okay, that's that's a fortunate photo, because you've got 3 pillars of Norwich City there. It's not got Milot Rashica sort of second in line.
Well, I suppose the issue with it, most photos of players applauding the Barclay lined with loads of flags will be from 1819 still.
Well, yes, but they were in the right kit.
Because Premier League lockdown, Premier League again, there aren't many opportunities. So most players would have left by then.
So you're saying that there's no possible way the image of the crowd would match. Here it is. Do you see what I mean? There's a really big gap between the players.
Is that Timu in the background?
They're coming out for kickoff.
Yeah, that one's real.
I think that's real.
That's real. I think.
From this, maybe the first game of the season, I feel like there were flags at some point.
You know what? It is real, because on the back are all the players. That's a fair point. There on the back are all the players you would have cut out of Photoshop. I take it all back. I apologise for the horrific. Ozan Kabak would not be in this picture if you'd.
Ozan Kabak, yeah.
And to be fair, it looks brilliant. There you go.
Yeah.
I think I've dug myself out of a hole there, have I? No. Well, if I don't appear at any football matches for the rest of the season, you'll know I've been banned.
Not for the first time.
Not for the first time. I know. But I should be. I believe this is a point that has been made publicly. I should be grateful that I am still allowed in the games and allowed in press conferences. So, and that is something I am constantly very, very thankful for, that I still get to do my job at games. What else have we got question-wise? Michael Spurdin says he wants me to give it. Not that I'm going to, try and create a connection with our viewers, but there's me giving you all a wave. I think you're all brilliant. Thank you for your loyal support.
Even the listeners who obviously can't see you doing that.
Yeah, no, I was waving, listeners. Yeah. So I've forgotten about them. I've lost my connection with listeners. Oh gosh, I'm now going to have to build that up with some verbal waving. Quick. Ben Mounts has messaged in. That's nice. Hey Ben. Should Hanley, or I assume it's him, it could be someone who's just hijacked his name.
There's only one Ben Mounts in there.
Should Grant Hanley or Ben Gibson drop out when Big Andy, Ahmed Bamadeli, is back? Hanley's not being great this season, in my opinion, and the balance with Gibson seems better. I must be said, this is a debate for after the World Cup because Andrew Ahmed Bamadeli will not be back before it. I think we've only got 5 games until the World Cup break. That is soon. We won't be doing this podcast during the World Cup, by the way. You'll all get a break. So don't worry about that.
We don't love you that much. We'll wave. We'll give you a wave.
Again, without wishing to, damage our connection with our audience, we're just disappearing. Sorry, see you later. But what do we think? Anyone?
Ben's absolutely right. The balance is better with Gibson there, but Gibson has looked rusty, hasn't he? Unsurprisingly, he's not played a lot, but he has looked a bit ponderous and slow. And I kind of disagree, actually. I think Hanley's been fine this season. Let's not forget that defence hasn't had a lot of protection in front of it. But yeah, it is really tempting to get a left-footed centre-back into that back line. So I'm just sitting on the fence.
Excellent. Anyone else want to not sit on the fence? Ffion?
No, go on, Ffion.
Oh, go on, Steve.
I'm Hanley for me. I see the point about balance, but Gibbs, that error for the Luton goal was just it's Hanley for me. And it sounded like Hanley had quite a good game at Sheffield United.
He did it right. Yeah, stepping forwards was good.
Kicked Billy Sharp, so ticks all the boxes for me. Sorry Ben, but just to round it off completely, I would also stick with Hanley. I think it'd be a massive call to leave him out, bigger than leaving out Krul, in my opinion.
Well, maybe I would also say Big Andy, what a ridiculous term for a man who's about 15 years younger than me, more than that. But Ahmed Bamadeli, he dropped off a little bit, hadn't he? I think obviously, he had been injured for a long time and playing that regularly. You probably expect that, but he's maybe not absolutely guaranteed to come back in when he is fit.
Oof. Well, Ben, next time you come on the podcast, you can put them all right. Definitely do that. What other comments have we got before we go? Neil Luther, have you bought any new earphones yet? No, not for my video verdicts. There we go. That was that. Thanks, Neil. I need to get some new headphones.
What's my Charles? Is that a name?
I think
Neil
that's probably I don't know why it says my Charles. No, I've not been called. I've not been called that before. I like it. It's nice. I like it.
Autocorrect, probably.
Yes, indeed.
Mr. Bailey.
I'm trying to read through these other questions. I'm not doing a very good job of it. Let's say it was that. Simon Moore, here we go. Simon Moore, how the championship is going would it surprise you if Norwich went and won at Burnley? If all the players had that finishing touch, they wouldn't be at Norwich. Well, they're just not that good. Yes, why not? It'd be a great result, wouldn't it? It would perk us all right up. Yes?
Yeah, I mean,
a huge result.
I think it's not impossible. I do think they played well on Saturday. There are signs there that there's a bit of shape coming back. It's just we kind of need Hayden and Yanulis to be able to play 90 minutes, and then I would be feeling a lot more positive. But I mean, maybe we could give Yanulis 30 minutes, McCallum 30 minutes, and then just play someone else at left back for a bit as well.
Love it.
Tim Krul.
Well, this is it.
Can I ask a question, Michael?
Oh, yes, please.
No, I don't think anyone mentioned in the press conference whether Sarah is still ill. Is he okay now?
It didn't come up, actually. And likewise, Sam Byram didn't come up because he has sort of a hip complaint, but wasn't necessarily ruled out for any period of time. I got the impression there was no one coming back, but it wasn't said either way. So yeah. I mean, I would imagine if I don't think because Kieran Dahler's out with laryngitis, so I think
sounds nasty. That does.
Yeah, we're going to and assess him today. I feel like maybe with Gabriel Sara, he would be closer to being straight back in it.
With Dowell, he pulled out like after the lineups were announced with laryngitis on Tuesday.
He pulled out of the warm up because he was finding he was short of breath, and no one knew why. And I think it was then 24, 48 hours later he had been diagnosed with laryngitis. So it was the early onset of that, but no one really knew what it was. Only that he'd come back in from his warm up saying he felt short of breath and couldn't figure out why, which I guess is not really a nice experience, is it? No. So glad it was like quite a straightforward diagnosis, and hopefully he'll be back. Because if they're assessing him already, he's probably not too far off coming back in. And I think they miss Kieran. I mean, I think they miss playing. I think they missed the opportunity of playing him in his best position as well. But they also, I think he's a handy player, and I think Norwich often look better when he's playing, if I'm honest. So. Which of course I'm always honest. So there we go. One more, if I can, from URCCW. They are here for the cool hands and warm embrace of my name, Michael to not Michael to. Oh, I'm so tired. Norwich to Sheffield, which is a TIFO podcast reference because I went down to host the TIFO podcast today, which is very exciting. I enjoyed that, but also I'd left my shirt there in the office, but I thought I'd lost it. And it was still there when I went back today, I was so delighted. I've worn it now. Anyone know what shirt it is? It's good for the audio listeners, this one. It's a green and white striped one. Anyone wanted to, Steve, do you want to describe it?
Is it a Brazilian one?
South American looks for me.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it. No, it's a Puma shirt. It's green and white striped. It looks like the Sporting shirt, which I do have one. I guess you'll all be able to guess who's on the back of that shirt. This is you're all gone too warm. It's colder.
Iceland,
close, right a bit.
Anyway,
Finland.
Yes.
Pookie's old club.
Yes. It's
Yes. KYTP.
KTP, which was Temu's first team in Kotka, and where he first came through the ranks. I've got his name on the back. Look.
Did you get it when you were in Finland?
I did.
It's a nice shirt.
It's the new. It was the 2018-19 KTP home shirt. So Teemu never played in it, but they were still kind enough to put his name on the back. And 16, which I think was either his age or his number. Not sure which. So it's probably not going to be worth anything particularly on classic shirts or whatever. But I don't care because I'm actually delighted I found it. I thought I'd lost it, and there it was.
Can you tell us what you were recording for TIFO today?
I was hosting their weekly football podcast. So Joe Devine, who is a Norwich fan, I'm just going to say he is, but whose uncle is Uncle Damien, who runs the old Red Lion in London. So he is a Norwich fan. He's away, Joe. So I stood in and spoke about all the other clubs that have massive issues. It turns out there's loads of them. That's quite amusing. I also got in a mention of Wes Hoolahan. I don't know how that's going to go down with the international audience of the TIFO football podcast, but there we go.
When you're on their podcast, do you ever mention On the Ball?
No.
Oh, what?
No.
They've got a good plug out of this one. So.
You didn't mention you had to get home in time to record this?
No. The problem is I don't think they would care. I think they don't.
Well, we don't care about them. So,
Exactly. We know our place.
Do you have cool hands then? That was going to be my question.
I think it's a producer reference. Apparently they have produced. Someone was updating the script for me while we did it and like sending me messages and things to include. So A, I looked really good or as best as I could. And B, someone was doing that live on the pod rather than, me having to cobble it together beforehand. So it's different level of resource. It was a bit like imagining, you're Dean Smith and you're cobbling Norwich together and then you get to, look after Manchester City for a weekend.
Whereas I'm not even logged in, so can't flag up comments to you today. Therein lies the difference, and that's why we don't get a plug on the Tifo podcast.
Yeah, almost certainly. But you know what? I love this. It's just it's my baby. So is that what has anyone got anything else they would like to say before we go?
So if this podcast were playing the Tifo podcast in an FA Cup final, who would you be supporting?
Oh, I just want football to be the winner. And also the likelihood of it ever happening, you see, would be, it's a bit
Well,
like
yeah, they're podcasts.
If I was a Lowestoft fan. Well, yes, and also the actual logistics of podcasts playing football. Good point. Hang on. Neil Luther has asked a question. Who would you want to take a penalty if we were to get one at Burnley? Neil, what a question. That is a great question because, there's a bit of time. I don't know if people would have probably seen it, but Josh Sargent was clinging onto the football. And I was just looking at it thinking, oh, Josh is going to take the penalty. Maybe Temu's got 2 and he's like, I don't want my hat trick. I mean, what striker would that be in the world? But it did look like it. But I think Dean Smith, because he was asked about it, he said, no, Josh was just looking after the ball. So I don't know. No one stabbed it.
I think it's like a decoy thing where one player takes it and all the Sheffield United players go and get in his head, and then you give it at the last minute to the player who actually takes it. Oh, but obviously it didn't work.
No, it was a terrible penalty. But which does provide the question: who takes it? You've just blown up. You're in that sort of hubble where everyone's sort of going, "Oh, we've got a penalty. This is exciting." Do we look? Don't know. Who's got the ball?
Well, I mean, the mentality was when I thought Josh Sargent was going to take it, was, oh, God, Josh Sargent is taking it. And then he handed it to Pookie and I thought, oh, God, Pookie's taking it. So whoever takes it, I'm always convinced when it's Norwich are going to miss anyway. But Sargent scored a good... Sorry, Ffion.
No, I'll carry on. I'm just thinking out loud. But Cantwell for me, because he scored that one at Sheffield Wednesday and the one at Spurs in the Cup. Cantwell is always...
Well, he did miss against Bournemouth. Yes. He missed the target against Bournemouth. So
Liam Gibbs scored in both of those shootouts. So if he's on the pitch, bring on. But I actually did fancy Pookie. I thought he was going to score. Just having a look, he scored 7 of his previous 8. It was a dreadful penalty. But he's got to get to 100 goals, remember? So we've got to give him all the penalties he can get, even if it's at the detriment of our own team.
Have I imagined this? Did he miss a penalty in the 2-2 at Carrow Road in 18-19? When we missed loads of penalties that season?
Sheffield United.
He missed against Millwall,
he did.
didn't he?
He did he?
Yes, he did.
God,
no,
wow.
Good no, he didn't. No, he didn't. Sorry.
No, he didn't. No, bad knowledge, Dan. Bad.
Sorry. Giveth and taketh.
I was looking at the wrong row. I apologise. He missed against Millwall in the 4-3.
That's it.
At home.
There we go. And as Maple says, Marcelino Nunez for another Panenka? ? Imagine that.
Yeah.
Maybe someone should take one who's never taken one before. Just see how it goes. Max. I don't think I've ever seen Max Aarons take a penalty.
Who would you be least confident about stepping up? Big Grant Hanley?
Big Grant Hanley. There was one headed clearance quite early on, which he literally was like on the ground when he was heading it. So I like the idea that he would just because he heads everything, just try and head it in from 12 yards.
I presume you couldn't scoop the ball up and then try and head it in. Is that an illegal penalty?
Yeah, because if you remember that one that Borough had
double
the other season that had the double touch.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe someone could flick it up and then Grant Hanley runs in and headers it. Do that. That would work. Yeah.
Yeah, the penalty against us was the Tavernier one. For Borough, I think it was him. Otherwise, Hanley would be your man.
I think we've disappeared down a bit of a wormhole. Is there anything else anyone else wants to say? There is one more question. Ollie Baines says, does Kenny McLean get back into the side if Hayden and Nunez form a partnership in the middle? Kenny's still suspended for 2 more games. Norwich did appeal his sending off. It was a red card. Are we all agreed?
Yes.
Yep.
Anyone surprised Norwich appealed it?
Well, yeah.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Anyone surprised they didn't win their appeal?
No.
No. So he's out for another 2 games, Kenny. I guess. I did feel weird not seeing him on the pitch, I have to admit. It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I think he was probably our best player when he was on against Luton, but then I also think we did look better when he wasn't on against Sheffield United. So it'd be interesting to see how we play in the next 2 games, because that might be the answer. I suspect if we don't win either of them, he'll be back. He'll be back.
Yeah, that's the way. Right. In that case, if we're all done.
Was that our Kenny Other Business?
Because that was Kenny Other Business, literally. And I think with that, we can wrap up another edition of On the Ball, the Norwich City podcast that loves the view from Turf Moor. If you're yet to do so, make sure you subscribe via your podcast player of choice. The pod is available free for everyone on your usual player, and we are streaming the recording of the podcast live in video form on my social media channels. Have a search and I'm sure you'll find them. Ratings and reviews wherever prompted are always hugely appreciated. And if you want to get in touch with any questions or topic proposals, sling me a direct message on Twitter. The handle is at Michael J. Bailey. In the meantime, and for this evening, a big thank you to our guest this evening. Ffion, thank you so much for joining us and well done again on the 9-8 win.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure.
Lovely having you on. Dan, thank you as always. Top
Thank
stuff.
you. Lovely to see you all.
Likewise. Steve, thank you for all your help. We need to get you hosting one as well, don't we?
Yes, I suppose we do.
I can tell you that. Don't worry. You don't have to answer. We will do that. Thank you, as always, for your sterling work. We'll be back next Monday for a fresh bout of Canaries Capers off the back of 2 intriguing games. Look forward to seeing how they're going to pan out. And we will have another edition of On the Ball for you. Until then, never mind the danger. And that is done for our podcast record of this evening. Thank you to everyone who's watching. Thank you for so many comments and questions as well. They were all awesome. Hope you all enjoyed it and had a lovely Monday evening. And you can get back to watching West Ham Bournemouth if you want, which is still 1-0. Thank you, everyone. Should we all wave and then we'll say goodbye? Thank you, everyone. Cheers. See you later.